Professor Nicholas Grossman standing by. We should never be late for class. You should never keep your professor waiting. Kind of odd to call him my professor. I probably got 20 years on him.
Yeah, but he's still your professor, really.
Nick, how old are you?
You take his class.
I'm 42.
I do. I have 20 years on him.
When's your birthday?
1981.
No, the day.
Oh, July 28th.
Oh,
So
okay,
if I was sitting in your classroom, how long would it take for the rest of the people in the class to go, whose dad is here? Or granddad?
Well, hopefully not that long. I've had have people who are either veterans, say, who had come back and maybe middle-aged, and every once in a while a retiree who's just taken the class for fun or maybe to get a degree late in life. So all are welcome.
I just don't like the categories you put me in outside of veteran, and I'm not qualified for that.
Well, they're young veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Sure.
There you go.
I'm a veteran of the talk show wars. Let's talk about war. What a lovely transition. Look, you know this stuff inside out. It's a specialty of yours, and we appreciate the education every time you're on. Where are we with the Israelis pulling back troops now in what's stated to be a chance to revive their efforts and then to go back in to finish off Hamas? And then, of course, yesterday we heard one senior Hamas leader was killed by a drone. Where are we?
Right. So the senior leader was killed by a drone in Beirut, in Lebanon, which is one of the possible risks of widening the war, but it's also a big blow to the organization because he was basically Hamas's go-between between the group and Iran and Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is based in Lebanon, and he was also in Lebanon and has been held responsible for coordinating with those organizations and with Iran also, and getting more weapons and other things to Hamas. But Israel has killed a lot of Hamas leaders before, and the group has managed to reconstitute itself, which is one of the reasons why they're trying to do a bigger kind of clearing operation in Gaza. So that has been the one that has been so brutal and that has killed thousands of Palestinian civilians as well as likely thousands of Hamas fighters. And that one seems to be winding down, at least in terms of heavy combat. But the groups that they pulled out, the units that they pulled out, are mostly reservists or training units that were tasked with something that they usually don't do. And since Israel has a citizen army, not a volunteer army like the United States, they have had to pull from the population, and it's been hurting the economy. All these people, a lot of them have regular jobs, and they've been sent to war, and that means that those jobs are vacant. So it looks like the heaviest part of the combat operations are probably winding down, which is something the U.S. has been pushing for, but it's unlikely to be over, as in all the fighting there, over anytime soon.
The thing that troubles me is Israel is absolutely entitled to defend itself and constantly been put in a position to defend itself. But this notion that we will crush and eliminate Hamas seems ludicrous to me, because Hamas is not a physical organization to me as much as it is an idea. And that idea is not going to go away for radical terrorists who believe it.
Right. And you can think of it even more broadly, of the idea of armed resistance is not going to go away. That as long as the Israelis are occupying Palestinian territory and the Palestinians don't have a state and don't have rights, you're going to have some people who want to fight back. And Hamas has been able to channel a lot of that and to consolidate a lot of the armed part of the resistance. And of course, you also have people who want to do peaceful resistance or protests or boycotts or other things like that. But there will always be, to some extent, kind of this idea. And as long as the Israelis keep fighting there, they're going to potentially increase the appeal of that idea, because as people get more and more desperate, or as you have now tens of thousands of people who have been killed, and so that means hundreds of thousands of people who have somebody that they care about who has been killed, and some of those people will be potential recruits for a future terrorist organization.
And I want to go backwards. You talked about the Hamas leader being killed in Lebanon. Talk about how Hezbollah is now sort of, they're the Lebanese fighters. Is that escalating violence there in Lebanon and or in Israel?
Possibly. So Hezbollah is decently stronger than Hamas. They have a lot bigger rocket arsenal with some that can go farther and faster. They have a lot of combat experience in that they have been fighting in a Syrian civil war. They have been they fought against Israel in 2006 in a war where Israel tried to invade Lebanon, and Hezbollah was able to stop them in a way that Hamas has not been able to stop them from invading Gaza and taking over Hamas strongholds there. So Hezbollah has been a potential looming threat throughout this. However, it really looks like they don't want a war, that if they were going to, the militarily smartest move for them to try to hurt Israel would have either been right at the start if they were coordinating with Hamas with the October 7th attacks, which it looks like Hamas did on their own, or after the Israeli military really got engaged with Gaza, then try to come in hard from the north with Lebanon across the Israeli northern border. They didn't do that either, and their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, who was also the leader in 2006 when they fought that war with Israel, has been acting more like they don't want to get involved. It's not really their war, but also don't think you can push us around. Remember that we're here. And so there's been this tit for tat back and forth between the two, with Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon, some also in Syria, some also attacking Iranian Revolutionary Guard there that are potentially coordinating supply transfers to the group. So it's always been this wariness of it could, even if no one really wants it, it could explode where they just feel like they've been pushed around too much. They fire more, the Israelis fire more back. And that reportedly has been one of the things that U.S. President Joe Biden has been working hard to prevent, that to try to prevent the Israelis from starting that, and also to have U.S. forces in the region, a marine landing ship, a carrier group that is a signal to both Iran and also to Hezbollah that if they start it, that they'll probably have to deal with more than just Israel. So far, that is more or less holding, but holding means daily airstrikes back and forth.
It's Nicholas Grossman, international relations professor at the University of Illinois. His 5 Big Obstacles piece is new in the Daily Beast at thedailybeast.com. And you're privileged to be in his class, if you are in his class, and we're privileged to have him on. Unfair to ask you in 90 seconds, but I need a short take, if you would, on Russia stepping up the attacks in Ukraine with as little as 10 to 15% of the fighting force they started with. How much longer can they last? And also stepping up of things in the Red Sea against Houthi attacks on our vessels there. I mean, it seems, Professor, that we're almost fighting on 3 fronts now in a soft way without any declaration of the same.
Sort of. So there are different spots, hot spots going on. The Houthis have been a problem for a while and have stepped up attacks on Red Sea shipping, which could disrupt at least the little elements of the whole global economy because a lot flows through that. The Red Sea is the other end of the Suez Canal, and the U.S. has just fired on a few boats, and we'll see what the Houthis do, but they have been attacking shipping in various ways in the Gulf also, gradually over time, and so that will be a potential problem. Russia has always planned to try to attack Ukrainian cities, try to fire a lot so that the Ukrainians use what air defense they have, and since right now a lot of Western countries, including the U.S., have been having internal debates about whether or not to send any aid. Currently, Biden has been advocating more aid and in negotiating with Congress, which the Republicans in the House have been more hesitant about it and have been trying to argue about a bigger, perhaps border security package or maybe nothing. And so Ukraine might be low on air defense missiles. And so from Russia's perspective, it's fire a lot at their cities and not at military targets. These are at apartment buildings and hospitals on purpose. And to get it where the Ukrainians then run out of their air defense missiles, then Russia can maybe destroy the air defense batteries from the air. And then they can really punish their cities, with the idea being that if they can't actually beat the Ukrainian military on the ground, that maybe they can just terrorize the population into submission so that they quit and give Putin what he wants. And thus far, the Ukrainians have been very resilient, but everybody has a breaking point. And if they don't get more to air defense missiles soon, they might reach that point this winter. More dangerous for America's future, Russia and Ukraine, or Israel and Hamas right now? I think Russia and Ukraine is the big one. It is a much larger scale war. So the casualties in Gaza are in the tens of thousands. The casualties in Russia, Ukraine are well into the hundreds of thousands. Russia is a more serious, more powerful enemy for the United States, certainly than Hamas, but even than Iran, which backs Hamas. So I'd say the danger in the Middle East is as bad as the war is for the people there in terms of for American interests. The big danger would be if that whole thing went regional.
Right.
And then all bets are off. But as long as that holds, Russia-Ukraine is the big one. In a way, it is almost setting the rules of the future of the international system. Can a big country just go and grab a small country next to it if they feel like it? And that's implications for Russia and all of Eastern Europe, for China and Taiwan, for even Venezuela and Guyana, for just about anywhere. That is kind of the core rule of the international system. You're not allowed to do that. That's been the rule since the UN Charter, since World War II, and obviously some countries violate it. But making it that when they do violate it, it fails and is very expensive for them is shaping the terms and however that turns out based on Russia or the U.S. I'd say that's the biggest one. But the Gaza war has potentially very big implications, too.
Professor Nicholas Grossman, if you're not at the U of I, how do people follow you? Daily Beast and where else?
Daily Beast. I write also in The Bulwark. And now I'm doing X, Twitter, whatever they call it now. I'm also on Threads and Blue Sky. I'm doing all of them. So I can be found at any of those.
All right, Google him up. That's Nicholas Grossman.
Thank you.
Like it's what are we doing in class today?
Oh, we're on winter break.
Oh, good.
Thanks for getting up.
I wondered why it was so roomy. I mean, I was stretching out. I had all the room in the world.
Stay quiet.
Be well. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
All right, there you go.
He doesn't have time for your shenanigans.
He really doesn't. Just thinking, Jonathan, I'm 42 years down the road on my leave of absence from Ithaca College in upstate New York. If I don't go back soon, that might expire.